Hello students, I Dr. Masroor Ahmad Beg, Principal Zakir Hussain Delhi College welcomes you all to this session on theories of employment. In this session, we try to understand the two important theories of employment, viz. Classical theory of employment, Keynesian theory of employment. The aforesaid theories form the basis to understand and evaluate the basic problem of unemployment, its reasons and measurement to curb unemployment. So, let us start first with the concepts of employment and unemployment in general and its types. Employment The expression employment relates to the state of being recruited. Usually, this is the arrangement between an employer and an employee. Employment for individuals differs in the sense that some of them are employed for the whole year, while others are employed for only a certain part of the year. Unemployment According to International Labour Organization ILO, unemployment is those aged 16 or over are unemployed if they are number 1 out of work, want a job, have actively sought work in the last 4 weeks and are available to start work in the next 2 weeks. 2. Out of work, have found a job and are waiting to start it in the next 2 weeks. Types of unemployment. A. Structural unemployment. It is also known as long term unemployment or Marxian unemployment. This is attributed to slower growth in the capital stock of the world. Integrating the entire population into sustainable employment is not appropriate, since there are not ample resources for manufacturing to employ them. B. Seasonal unemployment. Owing to the periodic existence of a given productive operation, seasonal unemployment occurs such that persons become unemployed during the slack season. There are seasonal jobs related to forestry, rice mills, tourism, sugar mills and ice factories. C. Frictional unemployment. It happens because of perfect versatility on the part of workers. The labor force is momentarily out of work. A certain amount of frictional unemployment is bound to occur in an increasing and competitive economy, where some sectors are decreasing while others are rising. People are free to work as they want. That is because learning new careers or traveling to new areas where there is a demand for labor requires time for the unemployed. Therefore, where there is unsatisfied labor demand, frictional unemployment occurs. D. Cyclical unemployment. It is referred to as Keynesian unemployment as well. It is triggered by the absence of productive aggregate demand. When market depression happens, it happens. Economic operation is at a low ebb during periods of crisis, thereby unemployment increases. Some persons are absolutely put out of employment and others would employ only partially. This form of unemployment is attributed to the fact that the community's total efficient demand is not adequate to absorb the full supply of the goods that can be extracted from the stock of available capital. E. Disguised unemployment. In underdeveloped countries, disguised unemployment is the most prevalent type of unemployment. Capital markets have not increased quickly enough to keep pace with demographic growth and the potential of the nation to provide substantial minimal employment for recent entrants to the labor market. Theories of employment. Employment theories are broadly divided into two: A. Classical theory of employment. B. Keynesian theory of employment. Classical philosophy presumed that full employment was widespread. For around 5 years, the Great Depression of 1929 to 1934, which consumed the whole world in mass unemployment, low growth and weak national wages, upset the classical theorist. This gives rise to the Keynesian employment theory. Classical theory of employment. Karl Marx first used the term classical economist to describe the economic thinking of Ricardo and his contemporaries, including Adam Smith. By classical economist, however, Keynes meant David Ricardo's fans, including John Stuart Mill, Alfred Marshall and Pigou. The term classical economics applies, according to Keynes, to the conventional or orthodox concepts of economics that had come to be accepted by well-known economists by then. Keynes, being the Marshall's follower, had accepted and learned these classical concepts himself, yet he repudiated the philosophy of laissez-faire. In classical work theory, the two broad characteristics are: A. The belief that labor and other economic capital are fully employed, and B. The flexibility of markets and wages such that full jobs can be achieved. A. Full employment, labor and other resources are still completely working according to orthodox economics. Moreover, it is believed that general overproduction and general unemployment are inevitable. If the country has some unemployment, it is presumed that it is temporary or irregular unemployment cannot be sustained for a long time and contrary to common views on employment. There is still a trend towards full employment in the country. Classical economics suggests that unemployment is caused by: 1. The intrusion or private monopoly of the government; 2. Wrong traders' forecasts and incorrect choices; and 3. Resistance in artificial form. It is assumed that the economy is self-adjusting and perfectly competitive. It is an economy in which the general relations of demand and supply decide the relative prices of goods and services. The price scheme serves as the forecasting process. B. Flexibility of prices and wages. The flexibility of markets and incomes is the second assumption of the philosophy of full employment. It is the price and necessarily flexibility that automatically brings in full jobs. If overproduction leads to inflation and unemployment in general, consequently demand would rise, prices will go up, production would be stimulated and unemployment would start to fade away. Prices would decrease. Unemployment may in the same way be cured by lowering wages, which would improve work demand and stimulate operation. Therefore, Once rates and income are permitted to travel easily, unemployment will vanish and the level of full employment will be returned. In comparison, classical economics viewed currency as a simple means of trade. They overlooked its role in shaping profits, production and work. Say's law The cornerstone of classical economics is Say's law. Classical economics defends the presumption of full employment as a natural condition of a free market economy through a law known as Say's rule of markets. It was the principle on the grounds of which classical economists concluded that there was no chance of general overproduction and general unemployment. In the view of the French economist J.B. supply creates its own demand, and he also adds that it is production that provides a demand for products. More of production, more of generating value for other products. Overproduction would not be a concern. Say rejected the risk of a deficit in overall demand. According to Say, aggregate demand must be precisely equal to the aggregate production of goods in the economy. It will be temporary and essentially equal to the aggregate supply if the market were deficient. The use of more money is still also going to be profitable and can lead to full employment. Basic assumptions of Say's law. A market which is fully competitive and a free trade economy. B. The free flow of monetary earnings. It is important to save all the savings immediately and to invest all the income instantly. C. Savings are the same as investments and flexible interest rates would bring about equality. D. No government interference in business processes, that is a laissez-faire economy, and no spending, taxation and subsidies by the government are included. E. The size of the market is constrained by the quantity of output and aggregate demand equals aggregate supply. F. This is a closed economy. Pigu's theory. The unemployment that occurs at any moment, according to Professor Pigou, is due to the fact that there are constant shifts in demand dynamics and that frictional resistance prevents the necessary rise in wages from being rendered immediately. According to classical theory, thus minor number of frictional unemployment could shift from one work to another, but for a long period of time there could not be involuntary unemployment. If citizens were unemployed, salaries would decline because all those finding jobs were currently working. According to Professor Pigou, the forced unemployment that was uncovered during periods of stagnation was due to the fact that the actions of trade unions and governments held wages too high. Professor Pigou thus proposed that at a time of recession, a general reduction in cash incomes would increase employment. Perfectly elastic wage policies, according to Pigou, would abolish employment fluctuations and ensure full employment. As defined by classical theory, the economy is interpreted as follows. Criticism of classical theory. When a portion of the income is saved, supply may not generate its own market. Not all is aggregate demand equal to aggregate supply. By lowering general incomes, job in a country will not be increased. The direct relationship between incomes and work does not exist. Adjustments to interest rates cannot fix the savings investment dilemma. The economy has been made fully self-adjusting and self-reliant by classical economics. The economy is not that self-adjusting and there is no apparent government interference. The incomes and rates have been kept too flexible by orthodox economics. Wages and rates are not that versatile in realistic terms. Chaos can be produced in the economy. Money is not a simple trading instrument in the economy. It has an essential role. The occurrence of exchange loops has struggled to justify the classical principle. Keynesian theory of employment Keynes highly criticized classical theory in his book General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. Modern economists commonly support his theory of jobs, often known as modern economics, and capitalist transition was Keynesian economics. Keynes introduced modern economic forecasting methods and strategies such as the role of supply, the multiplier, the marginal efficiency of capital, the preference for liquidity, demand deficiency, etc. During short term, Keynes believes that capital equipment, economy, technological expertise and labor efficiency remain stable. That is why the level of employment depends on the degree of national income and production. According to Keynesian theory, growing domestic wages would mean increasing job rate. The greater the national income, the higher the ratio of employment and vice versa. For this function, the hypothesis of Keynes is called employment theory and income theory. Theory of effective demand. The level of employment in the short term, according to Keynes, depends on the overall success of market for goods in the country. The higher the successful net demand, the higher the degree of employment and vice versa. Unemployment is the result of a shortage of efficient demand. According to Keynes, the total money expended on sales and spending is measured by productive demand. The formula here is effective demand is equal to national income, which is equal to national output. Absence of successful demand is due to the income consumption gap. The void could be filled by rising spending and therefore, productive demand in order to maintain employment at a high level. According to him, the degree of work depends on two variables in the sense of successful demand: A, aggregate supply function, and B, aggregate demand function. A, aggregate supply function. According to Dillard, the minimum price or proceeds which will induce employment on a given scale is called the aggregate supply price of that amount of employment. If the output does not pay enough to cover the expense, the entrepreneur may employ fewer employees. Therefore, at different supply prices, different number of employees would be working. Accordingly, with a minimum volume of proceeds, the aggregate supply price is a schedule which is appropriate to promote varying levels of employment. We might have an acceptable aggregate price supply curve or aggregate supply characteristics that slopes up to the right. B, aggregate demand function. The nature of the function of aggregate demand is that the greater the amount of employees who operate, the greater the production. That is, when the number of workers grows, the average supply price increases and vice versa. The overall market is independent from a product's demand when a specified volume of employment is provided to workers. The net demand price represents the anticipated receipts, a schedule of the production sales produced by different methods of employment is the aggregate demand curve or aggregate demand function. Determination of equilibrium level of employment. The AS curve in the diagram above shows the multiple cumulative sums that all entrepreneurs must obtain, taken together to persuade them to hire a certain number of persons. If the entrepreneurs are convinced that they can acquire OC money, they can hire an ON1 labor number. The AD curve displays the varying cumulative sums that, taken together, all entrepreneurs plan to earn at different stages of jobs. If they have hired an ON1 level of jobs, they expect the overall production to earn an ON volume of income. The economy is not in equilibrium at ON1 stage of work. Since the net payout is expected to be higher than the actual amount charged, that is OH is more than OC. The degree of job balancing is ON2 as the AD curve intersects the AS curve at this point, or the AD is only equal to AS. The figure of income, that is the OM estimated to be received from ON2 by businesses, is only equal to the amount of employees, that is OM, that if the amount of jobs were to be worth the endeavor for the developers, they would benefit. If the condition is such that the cumulative sum of money to be received from the selling of output raises the sum which is considered acceptable to be obtained, rivalry may emerge between businesses to provide further jobs. Thus, increasing employment AD is higher than AS on the left of N2, that is the amount predicted to be earned is higher than the amount considered appropriate. Entrepreneurs would be competitive in recruiting more work. The AD curve is below the AS curve beyond the N2, which means that the amount estimated to be earned by the entrepreneurs is smaller than the amount they found appropriate. The number of workers working in the economy would also be decreased. At first, the AS curve's slope grows gradually and then rises rapidly after a point. This suggests that the cost of production grows steadily at the start as more and more men are working, but as the amount gained by businesses grows, more and more men are working. They will be prepared to hire all the staff as soon as the entrepreneurs begin to collect the OT number. In the beginning, the AD curve increases sharply, but at the end it flattens. This indicates that as more men are working in the beginning, entrepreneurs expect the selling of the output to earn sharply rising sums of capital, but the predicted revenues do not rise sharply until jobs has improved enough. Efficient demand is the price of aggregate demand that becomes efficient when it is equivalent to the overall supply price and thereby represents a position of short run equilibrium. The importance of domestic output is also expressed in efficient demand, as the sum of domestic production is equal to the overall amount of money earned by firms from the sale of goods and services. The income earned from the selling of commodities by entrepreneurs is equal to the income expended on these commodities by individuals. In this way, the equation is as under: effective demand is equal to national income is equal to value of national output is equal to national expenditure is equal to expenditure on consumption goods plus expenditure on investment goods. It is not necessary that the equilibrium level of employment is always at the level of total employment. Full jobs ratios are not inherently implied by the equality between AD and AS. it can be less balanced than full employment or an equilibrium of underemployment. Currently, particularly in technologically prosperous economies, there is still some unemployment in the economy. Full employment is, according to Keynes, the level of employment at which more successive demand increases does not boost production and employment. Entrepreneurs are maximizing their revenues at the intersection of AS and AD. When the amount of work is more or less than this point, the benefit would be decreased. Even if full employment is not reflected by this stage, only when the investment demand is adequate to fill the void between the AS price and customer consumption would AD and AS be equal in full employment. This distance comes short of the average investment. Therefore, unless there is any external change at a point below maximum employment, the AD curve and AS curve can converge. In this circumstance of aggregate supply AS in the diagram, ONA's number of men wanted jobs, while only ONA's number of men would obtain employment. In this situation, the amount of full employment in the economy has not yet been reached, and the number of unemployed people in the economy is still NN. If the market is pushed by favorable conditions and the AD grows so much that it is now profitable for entrepreneurs to hire ON men at the equilibrium point E, where the market is at maximum employment level. The optimum condition is considered the condition where the economy is in balance at the extent of full employment. Lack of AD is the root cause of underemployment equilibrium. The assumption that there is a difference between income and demand is the cause for this shortcoming. As revenue increases, but not proportionately, output increases. If the spending is significantly raised to fill this difference, maximum jobs will be available. Therefore, underemployment equilibrium is responsible for the difference between income and demand and inadequate spending. Comparison between classical and Keynes theory. 1. Keynes introduced its new approach, that is a macro approach to the field of economics. There are several names for his philosophy: income and employment theory, demand side theory, investment theory and macroeconomic theory. In reality, a revolution in economic research has been brought about, often referred to as the Keynesian revolution. 2. The concept of full employment was absolutely destroyed by Keynes' theory, and the concept of underemployment equilibrium was advanced. He claims that the amount of jobs in the economy can be increased only by raising expenditure. 3. The new economic techniques and approaches developed by Keynes have helped today's economists draw the right conclusions about the world's economic situation. Consumption function, multiplier, investment function, liquidity choice, etc., are such instruments. 4th, the theory of money was integrated by Keynes with the theory of value and production. 5. In order to reflect the more practical state of the economy, Keynes first implemented a competitive economic theory. 6th, via inflationary and deflationary gap study, the explanations for the abundance or lack of aggregate demand are also mentioned. 7th, The theory of Keynes is a general theory and can thus be applied to all kinds of economic structures. 8. Keynes was influenced by practical policies and criticized the surplus spending stance. He favored covering the deficit provided that the country's economic crisis had been fixed. 9th, Keynes stressed the use of appropriate monetary policy as a tool to manage inflation and to raise aggregate demand in the region as an important part of government initiatives in all countries for career growth. He advocated robust public service programs. 10. He advised the central bank on a range of monetary controls that would in essence serve as a mechanism to handle cyclical volatility. 11th, in the economic growth of less developed countries, Keynesian theory has played a critical role. 12. In a means to promote full employment, he rejected the wage cut theory. 13. The definition of Keynes has given rise to the importance of social accounting or national accounting for wages. Criticism on Keynes theory. The Keynes hypothesis is, according to Schumpeter, a theory of depression with minimal applications. Both socialist or progressive economics have said that once communism emerges, Keynes theory is gone. Nevertheless, with the use of Keynesian ideology, the socialist nations have also sought to increase their national profits. Keynesian thought is not as nuanced and comparative statistics may be more accurately called. Microanalysis has been neglected by Keynesian theory and is not effective in solving the problems of individual firms and customers. The accelerator theory has not given Keynes any position. In economic analysis, she pays excessive attention to money. Recap. After completing this session, you may be able to recall the following aspects: types of unemployment, viewpoint of classical theories of employment, Say's law, Pigue's law, Keynesian theory of employment. That is all for today. Hope you have understood. So, we will meet in the next episode. Till then, take care. Goodbye.